Good afternoon. It's going to be back to the researcher model. Now, thank you very much. I would like to thank you for being here, for being able to perform this work with Febra Raras. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, Tony, with you. What motivates this survey is in the past 3 years, I was able to be together with rare people, with families, and because there are some patterns that repeat, they need some attention to for people who took care of these patients last year after in the middle of all the situation in 2020 when we were for a week before that we started this survey in order to be effective since 2020, and we are here to the sixth scenario with the preliminary results. I would like to thank you to present those results. Especially, I would like to thank you who is watching from here, from home. I would like to thank these women who represent us. I thank you for having the opportunity to present a work that's very important for millions of families. We spoke with 500 families. I'm happy to have the image here. The image is here. I believe I would like to go through the results before. So I find that something that was a little bit obvious. 91% of caregivers, 500 are large numbers. They are women. Most of them are mothers. They are their mothers, the patient's mothers. Another fact of people who take care of the rares, most of them, 90% say they work 7 days a week. 78% they are with the patients 24/7, and 42% they have completed university. When we look ahead about the financial situation of these women, we found out that 78% of those mothers receive some financial help from the father. 62% don't have a formal job. 46% resign to be able to take care of their children. 65% say they don't have enough money to until the end of the month. Expenses are increased after diagnosis. And what calls our attention on economies, those data are very important. Half of these families live with up to two minimum salaries. In, regarding the caregivers' responsibilities, they go to medical appointments, school, personal hygiene, take the toileting, feed, dress them. But also there is another interesting, most of them don't feel acknowledged for their work as a caregiver. And that's when we designed the survey, we had some support from some colleagues, psychologists, psychiatrists, to understand their psychological profile of those caregivers. And we wanted also to speak about pandemic, but outside the pandemic environment. When we talk about girls, I like to, boy, the women are much more resilient. When we ask about resiliency, 80% of who responded to the survey people around them wanted to keep their mood up, have a good friend who, and they say they become a better person, that they learn new things. Please, people start to care about them. When we start to scratch the surface, we see that Brazilians are very resilient, and Brazilian women are even more resilient. And then we start speaking, we have more in depth how people bring to the survey. You start to find out other things. We see that people's health is being compromised. 60% are not able to sleep well. 60% they say they don't have they don't have stamina for doing some chores. They feel pain and they don't have energy to do everything that they have to do throughout the day. And you have the balance between reason and heart, and you have to understand more what's happening, and then you have to look how is their mental health, and we start to understand that most of them cannot complete all their chores. They miss important appointments. They don't have a social life. I have people around me, but they don't understand what's happening with me. And a statement that calls attention that they feel lost, or they forget about themselves while taking care of the patients. They give everything to their son, to their daughters. And regarding the situation today, but regarding your son, your daughter, who you're caring for. And we realize that these people, these women, when they have the opportunity to for some leisure, and that's a great sign of depression, when they isolate, when they're free, and that's something that calls their attention. Those are the preliminary results, and you realize that something has to be done. I've heard from Mara Gabrilli, really, we have this expectation to put together. We have Luciana here. I have to mention everyone. Silva Greco, from Zambelli, the Congresswoman Maria Rosa, Maria Carvalho, Marina Santos, and Regiane, who's the image. For thank you for accepting this invitation. I would like each of you to understand things that your perception in regards to this survey that's been done with Raras, with 60 member associations. I would like to reflect. I have a question here. I have one question for each one of you. If you need to provide any different qualification, this is simply the preliminary results, and they were so important you wanted to bring to our event. I would like to start with Secretary Silva Greco. How do you see gender? Is it are you surprised with the gender? Is an element of surprise. I believe that's a sad reality. That's how it happens. Women, mother, most of them. Maybe I'll add that in September there are some data about a great number of suicides of mothers, women, regarding everything that you have presented, and the need to care, to to care of the to to give some care to the caregivers. People are talking about the lawsuits. This is also reality in terms of treatment. If you could have some help when that she could in this moment she could have her time. We know that it'll be very difficult. Most vulnerable people feel the need this for this help and they don't have access to it. These mothers are not they don't mothers don't live forever, so it's important to provide autonomy so these people could develop. But not all cases are, some people some cases are taken out and then people get older and you need public policies that will be able to serve these peoples, and we feel this reality here in Sao Paulo, and I see that as a sad reality. The reality that women are always in the front line and they struggle. When you tell me that they face depression, it means that they are in a crisis. They are facing mental issues, physical issues, and they forget, not because they want to forget, that's because they don't have their free time for them. If we could address public, if they had public policies, they would be able to take care of their lives. They stop studying, they stop working, and they need to survive with very small income. This is a terrible reality in our town, in our city. That's why it's important to talk about rare diseases, but it's also important to talk about people with disabilities. But in parallel, it's also important to look and direct public policies for caregivers, because those are people who are taking care of these people. I'm a mother. I told that at the beginning. I have a son who too disability. He's blind and autistic, and I understand the struggle, and I feel it. The great responsibility of being a mother, a divorced mother, and having all this responsibility with my son. It's very good when the public official is on the other is no is in their shoes. They're able to understand and provide better policies for the population of São Paulo. I would like to ask now Congresswoman Maria Rosas. The financial data there is they depend from their uh, parents of alimony. How do you see this topic? Is there any critical point, or if you could help, or with some professionalization within their homes? We have debated a lot about this topic, not only in regarding rare disease, but also in regarding domestic violence, because many women live under violence when they depend financially, because we have to within the scope of domestic violence we see many programs that have been launched by the federal government, quali- training women to go back to work and generate income to become more independent, not only outside of the school, but especially at home, because the caregivers who take care of their children, they need with internet, with many elements for training. We have many options for training. It's possible to put forward for mothers because, as you say, it's 80%, 81% are mothers, 90%, over 90% are women. We are facing this framework, programs that train women. In Mauá, we're going to train 500 women We are gonna in Guarulhos 360 women microcredit programs for 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 provide so they can be entrepreneurs and have some microcredit because my credit is also a problem. They want to start a business, but they don't have the financial means for that. Credit is they need small things. They need to sew, for example. I was a volunteer in INCRA for 3 years, and I was doing this work especially to take care of the caregiver. That was a concern back then, 15 years ago. It was a concern that we had back then to take care of the caregiver who were extremely tired with a terminal patient. And then I I offered myself to be a volunteer. I never expect to be a congresswoman, and then I became a volunteer. And when I got there, I saw a framework. I'll arrive at a home only with my layman, my personal experience, and they say, "Could you stay here for half an hour so I could I can buy some groceries?" Because they didn't have this time to buy some groceries. We're talking about this time, the time that the person doesn't have to leave, to buy something, to be available. Only people who speaks to these people, they know they are aware of that. Only people who know their daily lives, they are aware of that. She doesn't have opportunity to leave, and she has to generate income inside her home. I will take some broderie. You could border some do some broderie we in this cloth, and you could sell the simple things. They need some income, some value, so she's able to start a business. She'll be able to apply herself to do this microcredit. Is something that we started as well in a project with the help with other congresswomen. I'm one of the co-sponsors, and we are highly concerned with these women who depend from their husbands and that generates several problems in the society, especially caregivers, but also other problems that arise from dependence. I have another question for Congresswoman Carla. Also, we have to speak the number of women who resigned their works because they were not able to have used to have an income, but they had to resign from work to take care of their children. How do you see that? As Maria said, there is an holistic view. You cannot only talk about violence. Everything is a framework, no
Both
economic.
economic, um, uh, family, the number of people that are getting divorced after they figured out that one of their kids have some sort of disability is very high. You have studies that shows that it's up to 80% of divorces, and the mother end up in charge of this kid. Sometimes with the dependency, the financial dependencies, and sometimes the father just leave it for the woman to take care of the kids. So that's why you have this large amount of mothers. You have 91% of women, 98 spend 7 days a week with their kids. That means that they live for the kids. And I agree that the sample was good, like 500 families is pretty good. You're going to start doing public policies once we know the problem. And the greatest issue that you have is that in the beginning we don't know the problem. We don't know its size of it. Maria was talking about Rondônia. Rondônia, we don't know that there's a problem there. And We are in a project where we spend, and the idea to start a work in the state of São Paulo to figure out how many have the rare disease, what are the disabilities, and what are the needs. Because if 42% of those caretakers have a college degree, maybe it would be advantageous, financially speaking, of course, for these women to work and pay a caretaker. Maybe it would be cheaper, but sometimes they prefer to be with the kid because you have all this affection, and sometimes you need to complement this income. And some of the kids, the patients with special needs, they can work, like Mara Gabrilli. She's a senator. Me, as a project manager that I used to be, we had to hire people with disabilities. At that time, some people didn't want to work because otherwise they would lose this this benefit. And then we have the inclusion benefit that the federal government started, that those who have this card and want to work, they're not going to lose this benefit. Sometimes I don't want to work. Received not much. Sometimes they need a wheelchair, or they're blind, or they're deaf, and some disabilities that the companies were not prepared to deal with. Now we have companies that in the past 15 years, it has changed. And so it's complicated to have like a single way of looking at things. We need to have a special look. We need to take special care of the caretakers. Retiring people is not only the only issue. And then you have high ideological issues for today, like for a man, a congressman to become a candidate, we need a woman. So 1/3 must be women, and that's mandatory. But women, we see from the research, sometimes a woman is more prepared to stay home than go into politics. Of course, this roundtable is not most of them. We are all women, but we need to take another look. We need to bring men to this debate. It's not a women's issue. The man needs to be close. We have a great example here in Tony. He's, we don't have much to say, You need to know the reality through surveys that you do, like research that you did, like the one from the Rondônia Federal University, to make public policies. Because the problem with the legislation is when they don't know the subject and they want to bring a project, like Maria Rosa said, that 80% of the projects that arrive at the Congress, they are unconstitutional. And they said, okay, I'm going to present the person that we cannot vote because they are unconstitutional. And we need this sort of conversation, the one that we are having here. And what is the solution? We need to do the consultation, no, not to be reelected, but we need to do so for public policies. And I like to take the advantage because I have Regiane here. You're the director of an association. Did I speak the correct name? Do you see this reality in your members? Well, the great majority of mothers in our association, they are caretakers. They end up by giving up their life to be able to take care of their kids. Myself, I had to stop working when my daughter received a diagnostic. She had a normal level until she was 7. And then this rare disease started showing symptoms when she was 7. She would go to school, play with her bike, and then she started falling, stopped talking, stopped walking, and she was in bed. At that time, I worked. I was helping my husband in our family income, and out of the blue, I had to stop I had to quit to go after the diagnostic. And we had the diagnostic when she was 10. At that time, she was 100% of her time in bed. And the relationship started to get in trouble. The husband starts to get nervous. We started to have fights, and then the divorce. Thank God, in my case, we found the treatment. Um, she were able to recover some of the skills that she had before, but she still need constant care. In our association, there's a mother who had a stroke. So the mother is in bed and the kid is in bed. The sister of the boy, like, is now 14. The kid started cutting herself because she has to take care of the mother. The kid needs to change the diapers of her mother, and the father is a drunk. We don't know how to do anymore. We bought a refrigerator. We help with food money, but how can you have your mental health in place? Um, Through the link, we received many testimonies of people showing in their stories. They have the diagnostic of depression, and this constant fear. What happens to me if something? What happened to my kid if something goes on with me? So yeah, I like to take um, and link it with what you said. The mental health data that we brought with our research, they draw attention because in our day-to-day life, we need help. We need emotional help. These women, these caretakers, they need even more because they let go of themselves. It's natural. So, if you could comment on mental health, the research as a whole is very thorough. We need to check the problem, to know the problem in order to solve the problem. And it's really overwhelming, the result that we had. We are under a critical point. It's like a tipping point because health issues is all around. We all suffered with the pandemic because of confinement, the situation, not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow. So imagine these women. I'm saying women because they are the majority. So I imagine that their mental health might be in trouble. And that is very concerning for us. And the financial concerns as well. They make us very apprehensive. And that's an eye opener for us in Congress. So it's important to join forces. Carlos has a huge force. Mariana with such an experience. Maria and a lot of strength to go after a solution. And talking a little bit about my state, PLE, I left. I went to visit the pediatric children's hospital, and where we have the kid that had been intubated, and we had there was this kid, 7 years old, and the mother was there. I got goosebumps. I get really touched because I'm a mother, and I was imagining who helps this mother, and the mother responsible for that department said, or that award said, the father left the mother. Yeah, the father left the mother, but the mother was there with the kid. Imagine that woman. Imagine her mind. He gave up her life. He stopped living to live the for that kid with no life expectation. There's no way for improvement. And unfortunately, that's the end. But this woman was there holding the hand. He would clean the kid, and I was really touched. I was really touched. So I think that us, as public agents, us that are public representatives, we are congresswomen, we could join our forces and bring men to this debate. They shouldn't hide. They shouldn't run away. They are not sperm donors. They should participate. They should be there. We need a strategy to make noise. We need to be together. We need to be close to and support these people. Now, following the research, we had 72 people from our interviewees. They feel lost and they don't recognize themselves because they're leaving the routine of a caretaker and they leave the routine of the patient. In this case, most of the case, their kid. Like the basic issues about taking care of themselves are not priority anymore. So, and that's a huge challenge. As Marina said, we're living in a time where the main issue in terms of mental health, suicide, are growing like crazy. I was talking with Congresswoman Carla, and today suicide is the second uh, causes of young people's death. So that's critical and that's sad. So during the pandemic, it wasn't hard for anyone. Imagine for these mothers, these caretakers who stayed home with no way to get external help and put a value in my state. There was the case of a mother who took her kid who is autistic, and the school asked the mother to go back and take the kid. For more than 1 year and a half, she wanted to have the opportunity to take the kid to school. When she had the opportunity, he was frustrated. She needed to go back and retrieve the kid. It's something that we need to work. We need to give opportunities to have the psychological support. And when we talk about that, there's something very important. When we do the research and you say that we have 500 families, we're not talking about 500 people. Within that house, this caretaker may be taking care of two, three, four people in one single room, in one single household. Sorry, I had the opportunity to visit a family. Mr. Expedito, he lives far away from the city, and he was an old man who was taking care of four kids in bed. He had such strength. The mother, differently from most of the cases, the mother gave up and he stayed to take care of these four kids in bed. And you can see her strength, her will, but he doesn't have access. He lives in a place where electric energy is almost never there, no telephone. Imagine what he can do. If I need to take one to the hospital, I don't know what to do because there's no way to leave the other three at home. And that's a reality that sometimes it's hard to understand. I was telling Carla, we had the opportunity to talk. Sometimes we don't know where these people are. We don't identify them. And within this scenario, we have a reality of different families, of different Brazils, different access of knowledge, of funds. So we need to give this emotional support. We need to create a way to capture where these 13 million rare patients that we have in our country. We need to help the caretakers so they can feel loved, they can feel welcome, and they can feel the respect as caretakers as they are. So before I pass the floor to Luciana, I want to commit with you. I make myself available to support in whatever is necessary to do whatever public policies that you might have. I want to leave this roundtable committed to you to work together. I'm available. I'm available to do that so we can make everything we are saying today, the different realities, like the Children's Institute. When you go and we have visitors, we started taking gifts to the kids, to the mothers. I'm sorry. You know what it take? Nail polish, hairbrush, to try to excite these women a little bit. We have parents, we have fathers as well. Of course, we have 5 men that are unbelievable. We need to promote um, the the unity. So yeah, I wanted to say that, like, looking at your commitment, your point of view, I'm very honored to be here today presenting this research, and I want to leave with this commitment. So now you have the floor, Luciana. So I work at the Day Hunter. It's a assistential program, multidisciplinary for patients and caretakers. And the data that we brought are very rich. They corroborate what we see in our practice every day. So sometimes when you get into the world of rares, we need to understand that a caretaker is not planned. They become caretakers. They're not planned to be caretakers. We wake up as a caretaker and you don't have any instructions manual. You have to do what you have in hands. And in our practice at Day Hunter, we have a multidisciplinary team. We see very fragile families with an overload on the back of the caretakers, and they are very likely to develop psychological disease or disorders. And within this scenario, it's hard to look at the patient as a multidisciplinary team and forget about the mother who's there or the family who's there. So uh, the data that we brought here today, we're very rich, and it has to do a lot what we see every day. We have to look at this caretaker as a whole because they have a key role in taking care of people. If you don't take care of the caretaker, if you wanna, okay, it's better without the mask. If you don't take care of those who take care, it'll be too difficult for us to think about the mental health of the whole family. The caretaker is overloaded, sometimes alone, no hope, and even though they are resilient, and that's beautiful. That's awesome. Even with all the challenges, all the difficulties, sometimes with mental health already uh, in a fragile state, these families, they find out a way to overcome everything, of help each other. So resilience is very important when we talk about the caretaker. When you think about mapping, as you just said, the research is there to help us with that. We need to understand exactly what is going on, and neuroscience. We have some instruments to measure all that anxiety, depression, if it's clinical, if it's not, in order to think about a way to intervene with the caretakers. At Day Hunter, not only the support with the patient, since the beginning of our program, we have been looking at the caretaker. We've always had welcoming programs for the caretaker when the patients were assessed. We promote parents support groups, and we've been trying to contribute to so just to add, during the pandemic, we saw the need to understand the caretaker a little better. At Day Hunter, we now have a quality of life research. If you're interested, we can talk about that. The research is to map our caretakers, how they are doing, and think within our program what else we can do. At Casa Hunter, we could propose some uh, some some topics. I mean, okay, we have a question here today. All questions are very interesting, but we've been receiving so many testimonies. What will be the first step? I mean, we could start thinking about a project for a I don't know, retiring program, something that really uh, caught my mind was about resilience. I think you were the only one who used this word. We always, all of us used family, and we said that men are not getting well positioned. Um, that takes to lack of money, but also lack of care. Sometimes not only the financial help that these women need, but they need just the person to be there. And what we've seen throughout time, we could bring Angela Gandra, who is the Secretary of Family in Damari's ministry. The problem is that families are destructuring, are losing its structure, if I can say it that way. And you kind of buy the kids, so the attention, there's the resilience gets weaker. And on the mid to long term, kids and adolescents of today, they're not resilient because their education were different. For example, that you cannot spank kids anymore, or the divorce affecting the kid. We have adolescents or teenagers that are going to be less resilient adults. And when they are needed, they cannot take it. And we can see it only with caretakers. The caretakers, they leave throughout time what we experienced during the pandemic, staying home. And you wake up as a caretaker. From one day to the other, you will become a caretaker. Like you had to quit your job. You were home. You had to take care of your daughter. And you had a happy ending. Your daughter is doing well. So we need to work with families and not bring in the father, make him do it. We need to make they sensitive and bring the men and women together so that they can see, you see how important you are. And I see that in my family. My father is here. My father is like my buddy. Is he here because I told him to, he had to come? No, 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 no. It's because he feels it now. He's touched by this topic. So talking about retirement, sometimes I have a more ideological speech, but we need to think about it. More than $4 billion were deviated from our pension fund, and these people are out. We're talking about retiring people, but maybe they don't have the money because other people deviated this money. This money never had to the retirement fund. There's a law. I was in Spain when this law was approved in 2006, and it's a very important law. Many people supported this law, but we need to improve our development, our economy, develop people more, families. It's not only one single solution, it's a holistic. We need to bring the mares. And I think the Ministry of Technology released two tender process, and the government is doing good things as well to develop women for them to work. Maybe knitting. I mean, knitting is not only for the financial gain, but for their mind. So we need to start discussing this in events like that. Yes, but we need large roundtables to see how can she see the resilient people, what happened to these people in order for them to be more resilient and be able to handle all that, and propose public policies, and but also the communication of people to bring men close to the family and structure the family to avoid divorces and ruptures. I think this outcome, this first conversation, is just the beginning of large work. I think we need uh, to bring data to the table, the realities, to foster research. I understand. I come from a family that my father, I mean, it's an exception. He's not here today, but there was no difference between me and my brother. We received the same treatment, same education. So it was very important for me. It's just the beginning. I want to thank you all for your participation. Thank you so much.